Robert Mueller spoke about the Russia investigation last month, his first public comments in the 2 years since he became special counsel. He made it clear that that would be all he had to say on the subject.
I do not believe it is appropriate for me to speak further about the investigation. I hope and expect this to be the only time that I will speak to you in this manner.
But now we know that won't be the case. Democrats in the House say Mueller has agreed to cooperate with subpoenas, calling him to testify before 2 House committees next month.
Given the nature of what he has to say, given the nature of what was in the report, he will be a very compelling witness.
There are any number of issues that we wish to cover with him.
Committee chairs Jerry Nadler, Adam Schiff say they plan to ask the former special counsel a wide range of questions about the president's finances, whether the president obstructed justice, and more, but it's still not clear whether Mueller will actually answer any of them.
And the report is my testimony. I would not provide information beyond that which is already public in any appearance before Congress.
Joining me now are Bruce Singal. Bruce worked alongside Mueller in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston and was among more than 1,000 former federal prosecutors to sign a memo arguing the president did obstruct justice. Good to see you. William Weinreb, former acting U.S. attorney, lead prosecutor in the case against Boston Marathon bomber Jahar Tsarnaev. He's now representing one of the defendants in the Varsity Blues College admissions case. Bill, it's good to see you, too. Thanks for being here. Either of you guys, he did agree to testify, but will we see him on July 17th? A lot of people think the president is going to pull out whatever stop he can to stop him. Can he stop him?
Well, he's said that he has no problem with Mueller testifying, and I think it would be a little hard to walk that back now.
He's never walked back anything else, so there's no reason to think. But let's assume he does choose to walk it back. Is there any argument to be made about a former government employee and executive privilege precluding him from testifying before Congress?
I don't see how he would have a claim of executive privilege with respect to Mueller. Mueller was a prosecutor in the Department of Justice. He wasn't the president's personal lawyer. He wasn't working in the White House. That would be a stretch.
Is it a stretch?
Well, it is a stretch, but I don't think that precludes the stretch being made. And I think what you're likely to see is a Justice Department lawyer by Mueller's side advising him not to go beyond the 4 corners of the report.
Well, that's his words. I just played for you. The report is my testimony. I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? If he's asked the question, will he look down and turn to page 312 and read what the relevant portion is and say no more? What does that actually mean?
I think you're right. That's a little bit literal, but I think he will have in mind the summary of the 2 different volumes, and he will hew to those 2 summaries as the substance of his testimony. And knowing Mueller as I know him and knowing the Department of Justice, I don't believe he will go beyond that.
Do you feel the same way?
Mueller is a rules follower, and there are a lot of rules here that really do limit what he can say. There are a lot of areas that would clearly be off limits. Grand jury testimony, by law, has to be kept secret. If he used classified information or was aware of it, information obtained under seal. And beyond that, it's sort of a cardinal principle of the Department of Justice that when you conduct an investigation like this, you do not make public the findings of the investigation except in an indictment or here in this special circumstance in a report.
But let's talk about clarification. I don't know if you saw the poll, the CNN poll. People who say they've read the Mueller report, 75% said they read none of it, 24% said at least some, and 3% are lying and say they read the whole thing. I am telling the truth. I am amongst that 3% for work. I'm not bragging about this for a moment. So let's assume a congressperson says, if you said if not for the Office of Legal Counsel memo, we want to ask you, if were it not for that, would you have recommended indictment of the president? Is that not a reasonable question within the confines of the special counsel's jurisdiction? I think it is.
Well, it may be a reasonable question, but I don't think he's going to answer.
On what basis?
On the grounds that it is Department of Justice policy that you only announce the findings of an investigation if you are going to indict somebody and give them a chance to defend themselves, or if you're going to clear them. That is sometimes done as a courtesy to the person under investigation.
How about this one? The president didn't agree to come personally to give testimony, submitted written responses to some questions. What did that failure to appear preclude you from investigating? Is that an appropriate question? Will we hear an answer to that from Mueller?
I don't know if we'll hear an answer, but I do think it would be appropriate to ask Was your investigation limited in any way? Was any evidence withheld from you?
That's a better question. That's why you're who you are, and that's why I am who I am.
Right.
But how about that question, and then we'll work backwards.
It's a good
What
question.
argument, other than being sort of this anal adherent to this notion, he's working for the American people on maybe the most important issue of our time. Doesn't he have not a legal obligation, but a moral obligation to maybe go a little bit outside the confines of the report to answer Bill's question?
Well, first of all, I agree Bill's question was a much better question than yours.
Thank you. Okay.
Now, secondly, I think what we're talking about here is the difference between the questions that will be asked and those that will be answered. I do not believe
He'll answer any of these?
No, I think he will not answer anything that strays beyond the conclusions that are reached in the report. And everybody's going to want to know that the one you pinpointed is the one. What would be your conclusion on the underlying conduct relating to obstruction of justice? Would you have recommended?
Were it not for the memo.
Right.
And you're one of the former prosecutors who signed a letter
That's
saying
right.
you think of why didn't you sign that letter, by the way? You're not a signer, are you?
I wasn't asked to.
Would you have signed it?
I haven't even seen the letter.
Do you believe, based on what you know, that he obstructed justice and would have been charged?
You know,
should have been charged with it. What are you, Bob Mueller?
I have to confess to you, Jim, I am not among the 3% who actually read the report, and I'd hate to say something.
Well, let me go to your other skills, talking to juries for a second. And the jury in this, I think at this hearing, in my estimation, I don't mean overly dramatic, is the American people watching this thing. And I think Jerry Nadler, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, was essentially speaking about that when he said the following today. Here he is.
I think just if he says what was in the report and says it to the American people so they hear it, that would be very, very important because they've been subjected to months of deception as to what was in the report by the Attorney General and by the President.
You know, I did an event with Preet Bharara, a former colleague of yours, obviously U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, in Lexington a couple of weeks ago, and he put it a different way. He said even if Mueller did nothing but read the report, literally sat there and read 400 and whatever pages are, reads the 10 examples where there may have been obstruction, asking Comey to let Flynn go, calling McGahn on the phone saying fire Mueller, that in and of itself has great potential to change the dynamic in America, just like it might with the jury. Do you buy that argument?
I agree with that 100%. Just like a picture is worth 1,000 words, I think having somebody say something live, particularly when you're talking about a dense report that's 600 pages long, very few people have the temerity to approach that.
Even if it's dry, you buy the same notion?
Well, I do, because it's not that dry. When you look at the underlying conduct itself, it is pretty graphic in so many respects.
You know, this conversation, I'm acting as if the only people asking Mueller questions, should he be there, are the Democrats. Obviously, the GOP, Congress people are going to try to either impeach his credibility, damage his credibility. How do you do that? What would you pose to Mueller if you were a Republican member of Congress and wanted the American people to go home believing less in Mueller than they did coming in? What do you do?
Yeah, well, frankly, I don't know that they want to impeach Mueller. His report found that the president did not conspire with the Russians, and it also failed to find that he obstructed justice. I think they're going to kind of try to keep nailing down that message.
Do you think that? I mean, that'd be an interesting strategy that I hadn't thought about.
I think they will try to impeach him. I think they'll try to impeach him with the finding of no wrongful conduct in Volume 1 of the report. They may even get into the
collusion conspiracy.
No collusion conspiracy. Yeah. I think they'll hammer and reiterate that. And I think some of them may even go so far as to get into the Trump line about the democratic leanings of the people. And I think
on his staff, you're talking about.
On his staff, the Mueller people. And I think it could get a little ugly with some of the questions on the Republican side. Absolutely.
We only have 30 seconds left for a little Nostradamus moment. July 18th and thereafter, are we going to look back on these hearings as a game changer as we have prior high-profile hearings, or no?
No game is going to be changed.
No game?
I agree. It's going to be a huge rating success. I think a lot of people are going to tune in, and I think in the 3 weeks between now and then, you're going to be hearing about it constantly, but it's nothing new's coming
Bruce,
out.
good to see you.
Thank you.
Bill, you as well. Thanks so much.
You too.
I have better questions if I had more time.